everyone, and welcome back to the channel. John Owen talks about sports and movies. Thank you for checking out today's video. I always appreciate the support, and let's get into it. So I just got out of my viewing of Dune 2, and long story short, don't even try for Best Picture next year. You're not gonna win it. I'm gonna break down why I thought this film was so amazing. But make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe so you never miss out on any of the fun. I really want to hear what you guys thought about this film. It's generating a lot of buzz. It had a great box opening weekend, so I know a lot of people saw it. I'm also gonna issue a spoiler alert before we jump into the rest of the video. I'll be covering spoilers for both Dune movies. So if you haven't seen either or you haven't seen the second one yet, just save this video, put it on your watch later, and come back whenever you're ready to watch it. Without further ado, let's get into it. I really do feel like this is a generational display of filmmaking. What I mean by that, I don't think I've been this blown away by the viewing of a movie for the first time, and along with not being able to pick apart any flaws, because there have been some movies that I've really impacted me. They're still that I have watched for the first time, but I understand that they have inherent flaws, right? Like they're not flawless films, but I don't think I've been as blown away by a movie watching it for the first time without being able to find any flaws. I watched Fellowship of the Ring for the first time. This is the type of movie we're talking about. This is the level. I mean, we're talking pick your poison of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This is the type of quality we're dealing with. I think just big umbrella thoughts. So the first Dune movie, so for context, I have not read any Dune books. My only exposure is with these two films. So I didn't know anything, right? I didn't know what was going to go on, okay, right? So the first film, I feel like, is a really great sci-fi movie, but I didn't feel like it pushed the needle in the genre, just kind of in cinema in general. Checks all the boxes. It is beautiful to look at and beautiful to listen to, but I just felt like story-wise and world building, while it was excellent, I didn't feel like it was doing anything different or, something that really kind of pushed the needle, right? So beautiful to look at, extraordinary visuals and music with, very good, but nothing sensational on the story and world building side. Okay. What this part two was able to do was continue to build off of the incredible visuals and the incredible music. I mean, using that word incredible, I think, is honestly underselling how elite, how great this movie is in those two categories, while adding on this really rich, deep, complex, creative story and plot, which builds the world way deeper. I mean, the world building in this film, it just blows it open. It just blows it wide open. Just just whipped it wide open. Along with the characters being so developed and so strong in this film. So basically, this movie did everything that it did well in the first movie, and then added on where it wasn't as good, perhaps. I really like the first movie. I'm not trying to say, but this Dune Part 2 is this incredibly rich, creative plot and story, and I think it's an incredible watch. So let's just dive. I think Paul is one of the most interesting, creatively written characters I think I've ever kind of ingested in fiction. So, Paul, so you think he might be this very prototypical chosen one trope, that we've seen before, granted, like an Anakin Skywalker, a Percy Jackson, a Harry Potter, the chosen one trope. Like, we know her, we know it very well, a great trope, and I love it. Okay. I would say to an extent, Avatar, whoever is the current Avatar, kind of fits in that trope as well, but it's neither here nor there. But what Paul is so different from those other characters I mentioned is like, so for example, like Harry and Percy are the chosen ones, but they're the good guys, like good guys through and through, right? Like they save the day, they're good people, they make good moral choices. As opposed to, so you like, oh, like I saw this one TikTok comment, it was like, oh, Anakin ran so Paul could soar. But I think Paul, where he separates himself from Anakin as far as being different, is Anakin didn't understand the full scope and severity of what was going on. He wasn't aware of, like Palpatine's entire plot. Like he wasn't aware. He got manipulated into being this kind of fallen angel, chosen one archetype, and his actions, were driven out of two things. Selfishly, first, out of his own insecurities and lust for power, but also he really did want to save Padme. Like genuinely and truly, that's why this whole ball got rolling, because he wanted to save Padme. He did all these horrific things, and it's not justifiable, but the reason is out of love, just trying to protect the ones he loved. Paul, on the other hand, Paul is the protagonist, but he is not the hero. These two movies are very anti-messiah, anti-savior. They it, I've seen like some people kind of miss on that when analyzing this. Like this movie is anti-savior. Paul is not the good guy. Paul understands the complexity of the situation and the mystification and this lie. He knows this whole Messiah thing is a complete lie. Calls it out several times. Several times throughout the movie, he's like, "Oh, this is all propaganda. This is fake." When his mom survives the poison, he's like, "They're trained to do that. Like, don't believe it." Right? And he also knows what will happen if he goes on this fourth. What will happen if he goes south? What will happen if he takes the poison? Right? So he knows he is going to cause so much destruction if he goes down that path. So you may be asking yourself, oh, well, maybe he had a good reason. Not really, just like out of his personal need for revenge. And then he got kind of that power trip and he just was so power hungry. Even if he's a charismatic and trying not to present himself that way, as much as Paul tried to deny it, he enjoyed having that much control, having that much power. He knew what would happen and still went down that path. So, like I said, he's the protagonist, but he is not the hero. And I think that's such a subversion of how we normally see this chosen one trope, this savior trope, right? Like, Percy and Harry, they're the heroes through and through. Anakin's the fallen angel, and Paul's just not a good person. He's a morally immoral person. And he knows that his entire existence and being has been built on this lie and this plot, and yet still goes forth through it, knowing the consequences of what it will do to what will happen. This movie touches on colonialism. I say this all the time. Every single piece of media you consume has, at the bare minimum, political subtext. I think this movie is like very outwardly has like political text, right? Like very outwardly. This movie like is just hammering in about the negatives of propaganda and colonialism and what horrors those two things together can do. And Paul's a perpetrator of this system of oppression and abuse. And I think that's just such an interesting way to frame this chosen one trope that we're familiar with. Just really incredible character work, like truly, genuinely. Because now what has he gotten the freedmen into? A holy war against the entire Imperium when all they wanted was just to be free. So now they're fighting for the Emperor of the Imperium. That's not good. That's bad. That is the exact opposite. So they were trying to free themselves from the Imperium, and now they are fighting to perpetrate and uphold it. There's gonna be so much blood and pain and misery on Paul's hands, and he doesn't care anymore. He's lost himself. It's like in the first movie where it says like, "Oh, Paul must die for him to become," I don't know how you say the word, but the savior, right? The chosen one. Paul is dead. This new Messiah character, this new like savior, emperor, is a completely different person than what Paul was at the beginning of the movie, at the beginning of the first movie. And I think that's such an interesting way to approach a character, just really smart and really good and really unique. But Paul's also charismatic, and he comes off like he's very sincere and he really cares about the people. He got high and became a fascist. Like that's literally what happened to him. I think the poison, all it did was really reveal who he is. Down to his core. Like watching, like I just read Fourth Wing, and they talk about like, oh, like the writer academy just kind of shows you who you actually are. I think it really just stripped down Paul to his core. So just really incredible. Paul's fascinating to me. But what else? Just like all the characters, like Zendaya character, the only one who sees through the lies and deceptions, and I'm really glad that she really stuck her ground. She told him, I will be yours as long as you don't change who you are. And when he lost himself, when he got lost in the sauce, she didn't stand with him. She didn't. She was rocking whenever it was like, oh, just about taking down the Emperor and freeing ourselves. But then as soon as Emperor Paul came into play, she dipped. She wasn't going to stand there and be disrespected while he asked for the hand of the marriage of Florence Pugh's character. She wasn't going to stand for that. And I think she was just really great, and I'm so intrigued to see what they do with her in the third movie. Who else? Oh, it was nice to see Gurney back. I'm typically not a fan of like the fake out resurrection trope. I think they did fine here. Lady Jessica gives me the heebie-jeebies. She scares me. Her talking to the fetus thing, like I understand like she's a super mom and this is like a super fetus basically, especially after she drank the poison. That was freaking me out. I think it was well done. I think it's like kind of the point, right? Like this cult mindset and the crossing of the bloodlines and has allowed these powers to manifest. It was creeping me out though. It was creeping me the hell out. The Harkins, wacko, psychotic. Law Baron, Austin Butler's character, completely psychotic, mentally insane, killed his own mother. The gladiator scene is so intense. So intense. Like when I was watching it, I was like I was like, oh my god, this is like, especially because it's shot in black and white and the rest of the movie isn't. Still trying to maybe put together like the symbolism of what maybe that could have represented it being black and white. I didn't know, maybe. I don't know, but it was cool. It looked great. Yeah, and then the Baron, and then like Paul killing the Baron. And just oh my god, everyone was just like just wonderful work, wonderful work. And who I'm gonna be the most intrigued by is Emperor's daughter, Florence Pugh's character. I cannot remember her name and I apologize, but because I feel like because she condemns her father for teaming up with the Harkonnens to kill and take down the house of Atreides. She condemns that she knows that's bad. And I don't really think she's that power hungry. So I'm going to be real intrigued to see how they use her moving forward in the third movie. What I think is really cool about Dune is the fact that like while women aren't like leading, per se, right? Like they have such valuable roles. Like Paul's the first man to ever be able to drink the poison and survive, right? They're like, oh, like so much wasted potential in a male in the first movie and all that. I just think it's really cool, especially because this book was written at a time whenever that wasn't super popular. These books were written in the '60s, and we've made a lot of progress since then, which is great. But I think it's cool to reflect on the fact that Herbert was that progressive in that time. I think that was so cool. It's so cool to me. I think it's so nuts, like the ability to lay forth all of this lie and building up this religion and like planting the seeds for Paul to just come in and not be like extra extraordinary, but just kind of like do like be like an above average and just be turned into this messiah figure. And I know he's like basically like bred to be the messiah, right? Oh, the plot twist of him being the Baron's grandson, really interesting. I don't think it like makes it like super crazy or anything. I don't think it's like a earth shattering thing, but it is, that was a cool twist. That was a cool twist. Oh, cool. Just like this entire movie, I really feel like also the budget for this movie was less than The Flash and the Marvels. If I see any $220 million movie that doesn't look like this moving forward, I don't want to hear an excuse. 220 million is a lot of money. It's a lot of money, right? Your movie should look like this. The Flash had PS2 graphics, okay? And it was more expensive. Your movie should look like this. This is what a movie should look like in 2024 if you're this big blockbuster, right? I'm sorry, you got $220 million. You have to look like this. The special effects, the CGI, the costume design, all of it has to look like this. And the costumes are nuts. They're insane in this movie, just across the board. Like the Harkins and the Freedmen and the Emperor and like the Ben Gesserit and all that. Incredible. Just costume design is through the roof. Just a really, this is the type of film that's like, yeah, like, and I said this about Guardians of the Galaxy 3 last year. This is the type of movie that's gonna get people into movies. That's gonna like inspire someone to do something like this. For me, my movie was Captain America: Civil War, and like I love that movie to death. This is gonna be this type of movie for someone else. Like this is this is the type of high level elite cinema that this is what art is. This is what filmmaking, this is the epitome of filmmaking right here. It was just, oh my god, I loved it. So overall, a truly generational display of filmmaking. Dune Part 2 excels in every category possible, carrying over the already exceptional cinematography and music from the first one and complementing those aspects with an elevation in storytelling. Part 2 is everything a sequel should be. The film left me genuinely speechless, and there should be a lot of Oscar wins in the future for this standout film. I cannot wait for Part 3, rating Infinity, holy spice. So thank you guys for checking out today's video. I always appreciate the support. It really means the world to me whenever you guys watch and interact these videos. Like it really makes me feel like what I'm doing is, worth it, So I really appreciate any type of support. But also make sure to check out the link content and have a great day. Thanks.